Well, it's a very good morning from him, and of course, it's a very good morning from me. Welcome to my mortgage live stream. I hope you're well. Hope you're enjoying this beautiful Indian summer we're having as well, because it's sunshine out there, which is rather lovely, isn't it? Hope all is good. Are you enjoying yourself, having fun, working hard, and all those good things? Got a couple of great little ideas to help you in your business this week. I've got a little update for you on an old mortgage scheme that's rearing its head again, actually, not in that we want to start lending on it, but people are starting to talk about it. And if people talk about it, your clients might mention it in your conversation. So we do need to know about all these things, don't we, when it comes to it? So hope all is good with you. Hope you're well. Hope things are moving in the right direction for you in the business. It's not easy this quarter because of the budget on the 26th. It's holding things off, isn't it? People are playing a waiting game. I think we've been waiting for the last 3 years, haven't we? Which since the pandemic in our sector. So it's not an easy one to get on with, is it, at the end of the day? So let's get on with my first idea or technique for you today as well, which is taking a look at the subject of shared appreciation mortgages is what I want to talk about. So let's head over to let's pop across over here, shall we? Let's jump across here and we'll jump on in to our slides. Because what I want to talk about now is the subject of shared appreciation mortgages. So let's just pop on in as well so you can see me amongst all this. SAMs, as they're known as, haven't been around since the 90s, but they're rearing their heads left, right and centre at the moment. And there's a great article in the press a couple of weeks ago which I want to share with you, which your customers may well have read, your clients. Particularly the elderly customers, if you're dealing in the equity release marketplace or later life lending, people would have read about this sort of thing, or at least they would have talked to each other about it. So I want to update you on shared appreciation mortgages. So what about this press article for you? Because it's pretty alarming. The mortgage scandal that trapped borrowers with £1 million debts. What a great headline from the Telegraph on this one. So let's dive into the article and then we'll talk about shared ownership as we go along, or I should say shared appreciation mortgages, not shared ownership. So where does the article start then? Well, many pensioners who took out equity release deals now can't sell their homes. So 2 high street banks are facing lawsuits now over mortgages that left borrowers earning hundreds of thousands of pounds. Shared appreciation mortgages, equity release loans sold in the late 90s, allowed homeowners to borrow 25% of the value of their property. In return, the homeowners agreed to repay the initial amount borrowed when the house was sold, plus 75% of any increase in its value. So that's the terms of the mortgage that was sold in the 90s. So what went wrong then? So since the late 1990s, house prices have skyrocketed, saddling these borrowers with huge debts. So law firms, claims management companies, are bringing group actions against Barclays and Bank of Scotland, the only 2 banks that sold the loans, on behalf of 200 homeowners. Of these, about 80 are Barclays customers and the rest took out the loan Bank of Scotland. The company argued that the products were unfair, that's the key here, and had left some borrowers trapped and unable to sell. So let's talk a bit more about that, shall we? The claim is the result of new clients coming forward. With SAMs, some families have only discovered the loans after a homeowner died or went into care. Both banks have previously reached confidential out-of-court settlements. This has been going on for years now. So one homeowner took out a £200,000 mortgage in the late 90s and saw the price of the home soar from 800 to 2.7 million. And as a result, now owe the bank 1.6 million, more than 7 times the initial sum. These are eye-watering sums of money, so you can see why people are getting aggrieved. It's not the people who took the loans out, they're now dying or going into care home. It's the children who wanted to inherit the house who've gone to the law firms. So this lady from Teacher Stern, often we hear that as many borrowers are getting older and their health for medical time, the house is no longer suitable and they want to downsize. But because the majority of the equity is going to the banks, they have insufficient funds to do that. About 15,000 SAMs were sold between 96 and 98. That's a lot of them. They had to be aged 45 or over to take out the loan with Barclays, 18 or more with Bank of Scotland. Many are now in their 70s and 80s. Some have died, leaving their families, of course, with huge bills. Now, what's the issue that's going on here, really? Well, the main fact is that these SAMs that were taken out on properties are valued at reasonable sums. Now, this one here, for example, this person, Christopher, died in 98. In 98, he took out this SAM of 137,000. against a property value of 550. Reasonable. Today, though, that house is worth almost 2 million and the debt's ballooned to 1.2 million. So let's look at it in context. Again, we can all judge the past with today's situation. People often do that in this world, don't they? But here's a lovely little graph for you from The Economist, which shares with you real house prices in Britain from 1970 to today. And people often complain about house prices are more expensive than ever before, and they are. But this is real one. This is with inflation taken into account, deflated by CPI. Obviously, today, the house price is pretty high. But back in the 90s, they were very different. At the beginning of the 1990s, as you can see, you had a property crash. Not a lot of people remember that. You had relatively high inflation as well. Therefore, property prices in real terms plummeted dramatically, as you can see. And they remained way at the same price as the start of the 90s, way into about 2002 or 3 on average. So you had 12 years, 13 years where house prices did nothing but go down. And that's the environment in which the banks marketed these mortgages. They gave them to people who were willing to have a mortgage with no payments. In return, the bank was going to take a percentage of any increase in value. But when they were sold in the 97, 98 there, house prices hadn't done anything for like 8, 9 years. So at the time, they were a pretty good deal, in my opinion. But now, of course, house prices are rocketed. Look at that, since 2000, whoosh, right up 2008 when we had the financial crash. Property prices rose beyond belief, didn't they? Since then, actually, they've gone up, don't get me wrong, but we've had some high inflation as well since the pandemic. So property prices have pretty much only kept in line with where they were in 2008, 9, 10. Anyway, that's by and by. So back to the article then. So these people are finding it very hard. Trying to explain this product to my mum left her both physically and emotionally. The redemption figure for the bank was inconceivable, sickening and unreasonable are the phrases that they're using there as well. So what are they then? Let's have a dive in. We'll come back to the article for you. What are SAMs then for you? How do they work? Well, SAMs are a equity release type mortgage. Originated in the mid-1990s, now largely discontinued, of course. Also known as equity share arrangements. Borrowers received a mortgage at low or zero interest rates. That's the key thing. They didn't pay anything. And interest rates were high in the 90s. People forget that. They were 10, 12% throughout much of the 90s. They came down a little bit, but they never really came below sort of 7, 8% mark. At the beginning of the 90s, they were 16, 17%. So to have a mortgage of no interest is pretty cool. And remember, the mortgage doesn't roll up. We'll come on to how it works in a second. In exchange, the lender took a fixed percentage of the share of any future increase in the property value. So whatever the house was going to go up in value, the lender took a share of that, typically 75%. So how does it work then? Let's just quickly recap how it works then for you. How does it work? Here's a little graphic for you. First of all, an example, I've got a £100,000 property and the customer's taken out a £30,000 mortgage. Nothing too big. What's that, about sort of 30% loan to value? Remember, the bank wants to take a share of the percentage increase in the property value. Now, we go forward in time, of course. This property is now valued at £200,000. So it's gone up by £100,000. So bring that down. So the bank now is entitled to the £30,000 mortgage. And this example is a 30% share of 100,000. So the bank's now entitled to 60 grand. £30,000 mortgage, of course, which was not payable at the source, but is payable on sale, plus 30% of the gain. So the bank's entitled to 6,000. And these figures are fairly reasonable, aren't they? But if we go back to the article, we can start looking at some of the meaty numbers that we've got. Lots of people are getting involved here. No monthly payments, there we are, which borrowers use as well. So a consumer expert here, the missed sale of SAMs in the 1990s was such a worry to the regulator that the rules were dramatically toughened for the sale of equity release products. Not quite right, in my opinion. The home income plans were the missold products, which killed the equity release market. These arguably weren't missold because the bank said people had to get independent legal advice. The conditions were laid out. Remember, at the time, house prices hardly budged at all. So I wouldn't argue they were missold at all, but that's up to the lawyers to sort out, isn't it? Don't come suing me, by the way. Spoke from Barclays said SAMs are a historic product taken up by a relatively small number of customers, which allow people to borrow funds without the need to make any repayments. Customers have complete control of the timing of any sale and retain all of their original equity, as well as a share of any potential gain. So you've got dedicated support, etc., etc., etc. Spokesperson sounds a special type of mortgage, interest-free. We recommended they took financial advice, lots of independent financial advice as well. And they're doing everything they can to help with the hardship because, of course, they can and they will as well. So what are the upsides then? What are the advantages then of a SAM? Now, regardless of the lawyers that are taking these two banks to court, which, okay, I get it. Let's look at the upsides, the advantages of this type of arrangement then, from the 1990s, of course. First of all, there's no payments. Pretty cool. And no roll-up of the mortgage either, which is pretty cool too. Borrowers retain ownership of the property. There's no issue there at all. Cash is raised is not taxable, so it's tax-free money they've raised. And the final one, then, they know up front what the percentage of the future growth they're giving up. So as the house price goes up, they know what percentage of that is going to go to the bank. Problem is, a lot of that's lost. Pieces of paper stored in the 90s, that sort of thing. And when people die or go to a care home and then children get involved, they see things that they didn't see at the beginning. So lots of downsides. Remember the disadvantages of this product for you. First of all, the downside, we've got if the property values rise sharply, the lender's share can become very costly. Okay, it can. Some of these properties went up 2.5 million. So the percentage that the bank's going to get is quite frothy in anybody's book, isn't it? Number two, it might affect your state benefits with increased capital, particularly if you invest that capital and you make an income from it. That would certainly affect some of the state benefits, particularly for the older generation, pensions credit, for example, which has been around for a number of years. Early repayment charges might have applied as well. You have to be careful of that with all specialist mortgage products, don't you? And moving home, of course, requires repayment of the lender's share of the growth. They weren't portable. You couldn't port them over to another property. They generally wanted their percentage back at that time. So upsides, downsides. I just want to give you the facts about how the products work, but those court cases are still going through and the press might still pick it up. And when Martin Lewis picks it up on his TV show, everybody in the nation will know about them because he's got the ear of the nation, or Martin. So you might get questions about it in your equity release or later life lending conversations with clients. Hope that's been useful. Bye. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that one, or not, depending where it comes from. Don't like to sort of get involved in any politics really with these things, because the fact is people took these things out at the time. Whether they got independent advice or not, it's entirely up to them. When we look back 25 years later, was it a good deal? No, in most cases. But you can't do that, can you? But that's retrospective. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get on to my final topic for you in my live stream today for you. This one's called AI, artificial intelligence, is the new tractor. So will advisors then be left behind? Now, I love walking in the Cotswolds, particularly on a Friday afternoon when the weekend crowds are still at work. And I'm particularly fond of the old style workers' cottages that were once lived in by farmhands and their families. But of course, automation in the late 19th century, including the development of tractors and the production of cheaper machinery, led to the decline of many farmhands who migrated to the cities in search of work. And the beautiful farm cottages now are now owned by Airbnb hosts. Farmhands evolved, though. They began to learn how to do their jobs by mastering the use of the machines. Now, this led to productivity growth for each worker, who could effectively do the job of 5 or 10 farmhands, one woman doing the job of 10 people. Can you see the metaphor here? Maybe the obvious one, I suggest, but not the intended one. Let me explain. Now, the value of a farmhand, of course, plummeted because operating machinery became something that anybody with a little bit of training could do. You didn't need to be an expert farmer, which took years of training, to know how to drive a tractor. Their wages, therefore, stagnated as technology took over. eventually forcing them to concede to the machines and seek work elsewhere. Now, these farmhands were often skilled, but those who remained had to rely on very low wages. Whiz forward 150 years, and we have AI. It's said, of course, that the future will be dominated by advisors utilizing AI to enhance the productivity of their jobs. I don't think this is right. This is initially true, but AI may replace them altogether as the system evolves, much like farming in the early 20th century. Is it time to consider your next step? Doom and gloom there, isn't it, really? But hey, we have to plan. We have to know what's going on, and we're going through massive changes, aren't we, in our worlds? And we need to be aware of these massive changes because, well, we just do, don't we, at the end of the day? Anyway, enough of that. Let's wrap up and get you to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, let's get you onto our mailing system, onto our list, as we call it. So there's the QR code to get onto our mailing list, where we can keep you informed of what's going on in the world, which I'd love you to do as well. Other than that, I'm going to wish you to have a fantastic week. I'm off to a conference this week, actually, a conference of my professional speaking association. I'm arriving there on Thursday night, and we're going to enjoy a lovely weekend of learning. So I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, I wish you to have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.